This is the Chassidic Story Project with Barak Hullman, podcasting from Jerusalem, Israel. You'll never know. You'll never know. You'll never know. You'll never know. This is a story that took place in 1848 when there was a war going on between Austria and Hungary. There was a simple Jew whose name was Yisrael, and he was a Chassid of Rabbi Meir Premishlan, great Rebbe. And Yisrael, he made his living by buying fruits and drying them, and many times turning them into alcohol and selling these fruity alcohols. That was a family business passed down from his grandfather. And one day Yisrael decides that he's going to go to Hungary, to a certain town in Hungary, to buy some plums for making his little alcoholic cocktails. For whatever reason, he decided to go. I mean, he's from Austria, and he's going to Hungary, and there's a war going on. So it seems a bit silly, but I guess he just had total emunah in Hashem, total faith in God, that nothing would happen to him. So our friend Rabbi Yisrael, he goes to this little town in Hungary, and he buys his plums, and he buys some alcohol. And some Hungarian police, they come over to him, some soldiers. They come over to Yisrael, and they say, "Hey, Jew, what are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm just here to buy some plums and alcohol." And they said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "I'm from Austria." They said, "Austria? You're in Hungary, and we're having a war right now, and the Austrian army is just outside of this city. You must be a spy." And so they arrest Yisrael on the spot. And there was no time for tribunal to figure out whether he was really guilty or innocent. So they simply decided that he was guilty because he was a Jew. And Jews didn't have any rights back then. Not really. So they threw Yisrael into a jail cell. It was Thursday afternoon, and they decided that his execution was going to be on Shabbos morning. Yisrael, he says to himself, "Oy vey, what's going to be with me?" And he's got a little book of Tehillim, a book of Psalms. And as everybody knows, Reb Shlomo always taught us, you're always safer with the Sefer. You're always better off when you've got a holy book with you. And so Yisrael, he starts saying Tehillim all day and all night. And he decides to fast as well. Because what's the difference? He's going to die. He might as well take advantage of every second he's still in this world. And so Yisrael is saying Tehillim day and night, day and night. Friday night he davens. Shabbos morning comes. And two guards come to his cell. And they say, "Let's go, Jew. Time for your execution." They're a little too happy about it. And they take Yisrael out of his cell, and he's trying to say his Tehillim as he's walking to his execution. And as they're walking in the hallway, this high-ranking Hungarian officer, he sees Yisrael, and he sees the two guards. And he says, "Halt! What's going on here?" And the two guards say, "We're taking this Jew to execute him." The high-ranking Hungarian officer, he looks at Yisrael, and he says, "Shrulik, is that you?" And Yisrael, who'd never seen this officer before, he says, "Yes, I'm Shrulik." Yisrael, "Yes." And the officer said, "What did you do? How come you're being executed?" And he said, "They accused me of being a spy, but I was just here on business. I wasn't spying on anyone." So the high-ranking officer, he says, "Let him go. He's not guilty." And the guard said, "Forget about it. We don't know who you are, and we're taking him to be executed right now." So the high-ranking officer, he says, "Not so fast. I outrank you guys. I demand you release him right now." The two guards, they weren't impressed. But the high-ranking officer, he said, "Let's go. I want you to put Yisrael back in his cell, and let's go to your ranking officer. I want to talk with him." And so Yisrael is put back into his cell, and the officers and the guards head off on their way. The whole night passes and nobody comes, and the next morning there's a knock on the cell. And Yisrael looks up and he sees it's an Austrian soldier. And the Austrian soldier says, "Hey, Jew, what are you doing here in this cell?" And he said, "I'm waiting my execution." The Austrian officer said, What are you being executed for?" And he said, "I'm being executed for spying for Austria." And the Austrian soldier says, "Oh, really? So here's the key. Let's get you out, because you must be the reason that we were able to win this battle and take over the city. Obviously, you're our little spy." So Yisrael's let out of his cell, and the officer in charge, he says, "Tell me, Jew, what were you here for?" He said, "I was here on business, and I bought some plums and alcohol. Maybe you guys could find it for me." So right away, the officer sends out some troops, and they try to find his stuff, but it was taken, wasn't around. So the officer said to him, "How much money were you going to make from that?" And he gave him a sum, and the officer doubled it. And he said, "For a loyal patriot like you, you get at least double." And then he gave him a military escort all the way back home to Austria. Yisrael gets back, and he goes to Reb Meir Premishlan, his Rebbe. And as soon as he walks in, the Rebbe turns to his Gabbai, his assistant, and he says to him, "Tell me, do you remember when on Shabbos I said to you, bring out those dried pears that Yisrael made for us? And we ate them and they were just delicious." And the Gabbai said, "Yes. What exactly is the connection here?" Reb Meir of Premishlan, he looks at Yisrael and he says, "Holy brother, Reb Yisrael, you have no idea who that Hungarian soldier was." And Yisrael, exactly, that's what he wanted to know. He said to his Rebbe, "Rebbe, please, who was that Hungarian officer? Who was the guy who saved my life?" So he said, "I'll tell you. Your great-grandfather, many years ago, he had a dream. He dreamt that his great-grandson was going to be executed. And he came to my father, the Rebbe before me, and he said, 'Rebbe, what am I going to do? I had this crazy dream that my great-grandson would be accused of being a spy and be executed. How can I save his life?' So my father said to him, 'Start saying Tehillim, say Psalms, and say Psalms day and night.' And your great-grandfather, he said Psalms until his last breath left his body. And in the merit of that, when you were stuck in that situation, his soul was allowed to come back into this world in the body of the high-ranking Hungarian officer and save your life, Yisrael."